So you've heard from an ASX listed silver company. Now you're going to hear from the silver man himself, my good friend David Morgan. David Morgan is the author of the Morgan Report. He's widely recognized analyst in the precious metals industry. We're going to be talking about silver, lots going on at the moment, but he also consults for hedge funds, for mining companies, depositories, well recognized across the globe. You've spoken at numerous conferences, including when we could face-to-face at our Melbourne Gold Conference, where David was the lucky recipient, but he didn't share it with any of us, but he actually put the winning bet on the Melbourne Cup horse. None of us did, but David did. So he was in a fabulous mood at that time. Shame we can't meet back in person, David, but fantastic you could join us on today's conference. Thank you so much.
Well, Carrie, I thank you again publicly, because that conference had to be one of the best. And I've been to several, as you know, not only the events outside the conference, like the Melbourne Cup, which speaks for itself for anyone that's been there in Australia, but the conference itself. And, you know, I probably repeat this, but it bears repeating, and people that are watching say, well, wait a minute, get on with the interview. But that speaker that you had at the dinner, that was so funny. I mean, I needed a good laugh. I get a little on the stressful side, and that guy even had me going for probably less than most of the crowd. But that was phenomenal. I mean, just phenomenal. And I don't think I've ever seen Eric Sprott laugh so hard in my life. We were laughing so hard we couldn't talk to each other. It was that good.
I will pass that on. That was we had, for those of you that don't know, we had an awards dinner, which was a shout out sponsored by G4S at the time. And we had a corporate imposter, and half the room thought that he was an astrophysicist. I think he was an Italian astrophysicist. And it was only about 15 minutes in that people were going, really? Did he really say it was good? Thanks for reminding me. That was fun.
Well, it was fun.
But he didn't talk silver, but that's what we're going to talk about today. I bet you've been a busy man, because as we stand here, it's Thursday, the 4th of February, and, you know, it's crazy times with GameStop last week, shooting that share price up to almost $500 from a base of about $5. Some people made a lot of money, and I guarantee some people would have lost the money, because that was speculation. I want to talk about that, but now there's talk that they'll do the same thing in the silver market. Yeah. But regardless of that sort of craziness in that speculation side, which I do want to address, let's just start by a couple of things that are going on at the moment. Are you as busy as a bat at the moment in that sector in silver? What's going on?
Yes, I am. I mean, my phone is blowing, and I don't even look. I mean, I look at my social media somewhat, but I have, you know, a couple girls in the Philippines that do most of the heavy lifting, and I leave comments off. I have for years, but yeah, my phone's blowing up. My message boards, my Twitter, everything that has to do with a way to contact me is just over the top, off the scale, just crazy. And I started taking interviews Sunday yesterday for me. It's Tuesday there. It's still Monday here. And, you know, I worked a really long Sunday yesterday, and I don't mind doing it. I knew it was going to happen. And I said, you know, okay, it's usually the one day I get off, but it was good. I'm glad. I'm happy. I think there's a lot to talk about. And I'll just start off right now by saying there's a lot of uncertainty out there still, and I am not certain of a lot of this, what's going on, but I'll certainly give you my honest opinion on all of it. So, Carrie, it's great to see you, and let's go to town.
Let's go to town. Well, there's been, you know, since you were in Melbourne, the money printing machine has been relentless, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And so that's what I call the funny money. It's been going 24/7. But it doesn't seem to have impacted very much on the precious metals market at all. They have been fairly, I guess you would say, stable. What's your view on what's going on?
Well, slightly better than that. I mean, silver's really had a resistance level around 27, and I want to see it go over 27 USD and stay there. And so far it's done it for, I guess, a couple of days as we're doing the interview. I think it's going to stay there, but there was a lot of buying over the weekend or into Friday and into Saturday here in all of the world. But most of the retail dealers said it was the biggest day they'd ever had, ever. So I thought there'd be a huge gap on the open off of the Globex coming into the new market. And it was, but not as big as I thought. And I didn't know, and I'm usually conservative. But we got a pretty good move. I think it was up about 8%. It closed off about 5.5%. So a big move in silver on a daily basis is 3%. And we were almost double that today. So silver's doing good. But with all the chatter, all the GameStoppers, the Reddits, the Wall Street bets, all the stuff that's going on, all the noise and everything, all the buying that's taken place in the SLV the last 2 days and everything else, frankly, I'm a little surprised the price isn't higher.
Well, I am too. And I'm wondering whether or not people are just looking at this and saying, like looking at GameStop, which went parabolic, pulled back. Maybe people are saying, well, that's just ridiculous, and we're not going to play that game. Are they looking, because it's not a fundamental, it's almost changing the rules of the game.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we all have our opinion on it. I mean, it's sort of like turning the tables, the old what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's okay for the Wall Streeters to have the inside track, short stocks, put out bad news, even if it's fake, and make a killing on these. But then when another group decides to go long on because they're shorting and take them out, which they did on GameStop, that's collusion, that's manipulation. We got to stop it. We're going to sell you out without your permission. We're not going to let you buy it anymore, and on it goes. Look, I don't know where I stand on regulation. I mean, I really like free markets, but no matter what the rules are, they're going to be broken, whether they're in place or not in place. And this is just, I think, the biggest wake-up call we've ever seen. This is my opinion, for the general investing public to see the fact that these markets are manipulated, managed, controlled. You won't use your adjective. And I think a lot of those same people that a week ago would say, oh, it's just those precious metals nuts, those conspiracy theorists that think that markets aren't, free. And now they see it right in their face. And no, that's not true. It's not a bunch of conspiracy nuts. Almost all of these markets are controlled, managed, misallocated, you name it, controlled is a good word, almost all the time. And that, I think, has got a lot of people upset. Now, some of them are looking at, well, how do we get back into the game and what can we do to, I guess I'll say get even. I mean, we're being have a conversation here. And it's spilled into the silver market. The problem with the silver market, it's a commodity, not a stock.
Yeah.
The other problem is that the derivative exposure in a stock is the stock itself, margin on that stock, and an option on that stock. In silver, you've got futures, options on futures, ETFs, real ETFs, not so real ETFs, options on ETFs. Then you have the over-the-counter market, which is far larger in scale than what the transparent derivatives market are. So all the over-the-counter derivatives where you see, these huge option and futures positions that are short metal that doesn't exist. That's what you see. Oh my goodness, it can't be 100 to 1 or 50 to 1 or whatever it is. Well, that's what you see. What you don't see is the 150 to 1 or 200 to 1, the over-the-counter market. Now, I don't know what it is, so I could be wrong. I mean, the over-the-counter market could be net long for all I know. I don't know. I doubt it. So the point I'm making is markets run on supply and demand, and the amount of supply of paper silver that be created is infinity times 2. I mean, they could create all they want in the transparent market and in the over-the-counter derivative market that no one sees except those that play in it, which are, the big bullion banks, hedge funds, the good old boys club, probably even some of the major banks. I don't know every single detail, but I'm giving you the general idea. So what I'm saying, and I'll concisely say it, when the GameStop crowd took on that, good for them. That's my take.
Yeah.
But when you're taking on the silver shorts, oh boy,
good luck.
playing a different game. It's not sandlot baseball anymore. It's the World Series of World Series. That's who you're playing against.
Absolutely. And what I guess my question is, why do you think that they chose to play in the World Series versus the local backyard, as we would say in Australia, cricket?
Yeah, one, I don't know. I think, well, a couple things. I really don't know, but my opinion is, number one, that silver is the most undervalued market out there. Number two is the one thing about
Sorry,
it being
David, why do you say it's so undervalued? Why is silver the most undervalued market out there?
because on an inflation adjusted basis, silver is cheaper than it was during the Great Depression. No other asset, no stock, no commodity. I mean, even a wheat or corn or soybean or anything. You've seen these exponential moves in stocks like Tesla, of course, GameStop recently, and others. And almost everything has been at least touched and stayed close to its inflation adjusted price, except for silver. That's why I say that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought it was very important to understand that. Because
Oh, I agree. No, I'm glad you interrupt all you want. I think it is, what, on the amount of money printing that's taken place, silver is actually cheaper now than when it was at $5 an ounce when I started the Silver Investor 22 years ago. Now,
So
people say, wait a minute, David, you're off your rocker. You're saying that $25 is less than $5. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the amount of paper printed when silver was at $5 was a certain level. And it's more than 5 times that amount now, which means that how many dollars versus an ounce of silver is greater than it was when silver was at $5 an ounce. Hope I'm making that clear. Let me say it one more time differently. In the Great Depression, silver was $22, 22 cents an ounce. When it was at $5, there was a chart that was put out by Forbes magazine after Warren Buffett bought a tons of silver at around the $5 level. This chart did an inflation adjusted price of silver. In that inflation adjusted price of silver, silver's at the lowest price in all recorded history. That's when Warren Buffett bought. If we did that same analysis today and did an inflation adjusted chart for the price of silver, we'd be back at a lower price than at that time.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about.
So inflation adjusted is where it comes at. Why do you think that this has happened to the silver market?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think one, the value that we're discussing now, I think that some of the Wall Street bets types thought it was an easy market. And it isn't, as I just explained, but there is a part of it that they cannot manipulate, really. And that's the physical market. The problem with the physical market is, getting a hold of silver in your hand is pretty cool. At least I think so. And several others do. Very small percentage of the population, but it can be a bit cumbersome and trying on the patience of the investor, because you lock in your price over the phone. You don't need a brokerage account, by the way. The only reason you need a brokerage account to play in the silver market is if you want to do derivatives. Right. You want to do a mining company or an ETF or a futures contract or an option or something like that, then you need a brokerage account. If you just want to buy silver, all you have to do is call up somebody that deals in it and buy it.
Yeah,
it's the easiest thing to do in the world. So that you've got that going for it, but you gotta have patience when you call up and you put your funny money, on a check or a wire, or even in physical pieces of paper. Unless you do it over the counter, physical pieces of paper, you have to wait. And sometimes it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. In today's world, with what's going on right now in the last few days, at least in North America, you're probably, and I haven't checked with many dealers, I've been too busy, but you're probably at 5 or 6 weeks. And the first time you do it, that 6 weeks feels like 6 months. They've got your $1,000 and you don't have your silver yet. Or they got your $10,000 and you don't have your silver yet. Or they got your $100,000 and you don't have your silver yet. But it comes, you'll get it. And then, life goes on and you've got silver instead of funny money. So there's that. The market needs conviction. I'm not sure these Wall Street bets types understand when you're dealing in the commodity market, especially when it's been suppressed as long and as hard and as well as the silver market, that you're in the major leagues and you got to be able to, grind it out. You got to be able to put in the pinch hitter. You got to be able to bunt. You got to be able to run fast. You got to be able to steal bases. You got to be able to do everything. Because if you can't, you're playing, as I said, hard ball. But we can win. It can be done. But you just got to know the game. You got to know how to play it, and you've got to have conviction. You got to be able to play all 9 innings. If you're not willing to do that, you're probably in the wrong market.
Do you think that these guys that have been the Wall Street bets and that did the GameStop, are they strong enough to stay the course, to play all 9 innings?
The honest answer is I don't know. But what I do know is what one of my daughters texted me this morning, and she said, is this real or fake? What's going on? I haven't had time to call her, by the way. Sorry, I digress. She said, look, are these hedge funds in there playing us? And the answer is, one, I really don't know, but I have a hunch it could be because, going back into my history in the silver market forever. I mean, you go back to the Hunt brothers. You don't think when that silver market went parabolic, the guys that have been shorting silver, all day long for weeks and months on end, maybe years on end, when silver took off parabolic to the upside, they didn't go long? Of course they did. They don't care which way the silver market moves. They don't care which way the wind blows. As long as they set their sails and they're raking in the cash, they'll go whatever direction it goes. They don't care. So we've got that same thing going for us in a way. We might have a hedge fund or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20. So I'm going long. In fact, not only am I buying the SLV, I'm doing a Texas hedge. This is a joke, but it's not. It was a big thing in the 70s. A Texas hedge is you buy futures contract and take delivery at the same time. That really puts a squeeze on. So who knows? I don't. I mean, it could happen. And as I said, and I keep repeating, just be ready. You're in the biggest game of all, because the only way the shorts will start buying back at higher prices is you scared the holy, what out of them.
Yep.
And they don't scare easy. They've got everything on their side. They've got the, plunge protection team, the SEC, the CFTC, all the regulators, all the brokerage houses. The only thing they don't have in their hands is most of the dealers, but some of the wholesalers may side with them with enough pressure. We don't know. I don't want to badmouth anybody. I'm just calling them as I see them, and I've been there, done that. I was in the market in the 70s. I know. And I've read almost every book that's ever been published about the silver market, both pro and con. So I've got a pretty good feel for it, and that's the way I'm seeing it today.
And speaking of books in the market, I think it's good for those that are listening today, because silver obviously is coming more into the mainstream media. People are questioning, people that have never been involved in silver before. You've written a book.
3 books. There's
10 rules. The one I want to talk about is 10 rules of silver investing.
Oh, that's a freebie. Yeah, that's a 2 or 3 minute read. It's worth its weight in gold. I mean, really, it'll keep you out of trouble. And
so where did they get that, David? How do they find the 10 rules?
Yeah, go to Bing, Google, any search engine, type in 10 rules of silver investing. And if that doesn't do it, type in 10 rules of silver investing, David Morgan, and you'll get it.
Yeah, because I think for those people that just are beginning to understand that as part of their portfolio that they should have silver, and I want to ask you why they should have, read that first. As David said, it's 2 to 3 minute read, but it will at least give you some guidance along the way.
Yeah, it'll keep you out of trouble. I mean, the most of criticism I get are from people that didn't take those 2 minutes to understand that you can get yourself in trouble. They use leverage. They buy too much. They buy the wrong kind. They buy it from the wrong dealer. There's everything I outlined, those 10 rules, they do the opposite because they don't know any better. So, or they get excited or, whatever. So it's definitely worth the read.
Given what's this sentiment that's changing, the chaos in the markets, the fact that the man on the street is suddenly waking up and saying, well, what is this silver market? And I assume they're going to be looking at it and say, people that have never been involved before, do you see sentiment changing? And as a result of that, do you think that silver will become more understood? Because I don't think it has been understood over the years.
Yes, I totally agree. I'll just second that vote. I mean, you're going to see, I think the biggest takeaway so far isn't that the Wall Street bet guys are on silver, which, I'm very happy about. It's the fact that we have really finally awakened the public to the silver story. I think the main takeaway so far is awareness of silver and why it's important. And, You could substitute gold, but remember, he who owns the gold makes the rules. The banks own the gold. We have an opportunity here where the people can own the silver. Again, we were up against, the big beast. We've got people that always win, never lose, have got every regulator and brokerage house on their side, have got the ability to change the rules at any time and all that. But what they can't prevent is people coming up, putting their fiat on the counter and taking real silver. And if enough of that happens, they know what the market is. In other words, they know what the physical supply looks like. And then if one of them gives in, they all give in. That's my take, or that's the idea. Not everyone's holding the ground in this battle. And someone says, you know what, we're already down, 7 billion, and I'm not taking anymore. We're buying back our short position. Once they buy it back, you're on your way. You go into GameStop mode.
Wow. Do you think that because this is being, unveiled, unraveled, whichever way you want to look at it, because I think for a long time people go, there's no manipulation. The silver price is the silver price. What are you talking about? If it was worth more, it would be worth more.
Yeah.
But what is the paper market compared to the physical market? So if I want physical silver, which I have, what's the ratio?
It varies. It's been coming down quite a bit over the last several months. So the rule of thumb used to be about 100 to 1. That comes from data itself. And also Jeff Christian is very famous for having said that during the CFTC hearing on the manipulation of silver. But it's been a lot less. And the reason it's less, in my studied opinion, is these shorts don't want too much exposure. If you've got, if it's a 10 to 1 ratio instead of a 100 to 1 ratio, you've got a lot less risk. If you have 100 to 1, you got 10 times the risk. And the fact is that there's been enough silver supply amount of physical to cover the amount of demand most of the time. So let me explain it a little bit more, Carrie.
Yep.
You say, well, so you're looking at it from, not a real knowledgeable perspective on silver. You say, well, wait a minute, David, wait a minute, Carrie, look, if the silver price wasn't correct, then you wouldn't be getting all the silver that the market's, determined to be required, the amount of demand, physical demand. And they're right. For the most part, there's been enough silver that it has taken care of the demand. Now, let me go a little further because some people might not follow what I'm saying. Now, I know I'm clear, but it doesn't mean I'm communicating that well. If you go back to the old goldsmiths, and people warehouse their gold with the goldsmith, and they gave them a receipt. And so they had 10 ounces of gold, got a receipt for 10 ounces. They had 1 ounce, got a receipt for 1 ounce, got a half ounce, got a receipt for 1.5 ounce. So as the market progressed and the goldsmiths figured out really quickly that people didn't turn the receipts in for gold, they just swapped receipts. And after a little bit longer, they realized that only about 10% ever came back to actually get the physical gold. The other 90% was out there floating around and people were swapping receipts. They said, aha, wow, we got a scam we could pull. We'll just make up more receipts because people don't turn them in, and we'll just create money out of nothing. And that's how the whole fractional reserve banking thing really started. So take that to modern times. That's what's happening. Now, as long as the gold holders back in the ancient times never demanded their gold, everything was wonderful. They only needed a 10% cover ratio and nobody knew the difference. The only time someone knew the difference is when there was a bank run. The bank run was when everyone that had a certificate came to the bank and said, give me my gold, or came to the goldsmith and said, give me my gold. Well, since they'd issue more receipts than there was gold, guess what? Default. So it's a very simple thing to understand when you boil it down. I think that far, at least I'm trying to be very crystal clear on this. Yeah. But everyone now says we're too sophisticated. Who wants real silver? It'll never happen. It can't. The powers that be are too powerful, blah, 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 blah. You'll hear every excuse there is. But the truth of the matter is It can happen. In fact, what's interesting, Carrie, is that I got my Twitter account up here and I just put out a couple of tweets, and I don't want to make this about me. I want to make it about facts. But first of all, there's one thing that I wrote around circa 2002, and I said, for the record, I will state that there will be another more frenzied scramble, which will carry silver prices to highs that will repair all the excess paper money creation, price suppression, supply deficit, and bearish sentiment over the past decades. It will be known as the Great Silver Crisis. Now, I said that and wrote that about 2002. So that's point number one. I just had to get that off my chest because we may be there. The other thing is the amount of SLV that was bought going into the weekend was about 35 million ounces. And my friend Bob Coleman tweeted out, and I retweeted 20 million ounces today. So there's 50 million ounces. In a good year, silver is about 100 million ounce market on the ETFs.
Wow.
We've done half that in 2 days. And the last thing I want to say, and I can't find it, but I'll do it from memory, is that the CME, the control board there, here it is. CME raises silver margins by 18%.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's their normal margin, David?
Well, it depends on the broker because there's a set margin by the CME.
Yep.
And I'm just going to pick a number to give you the right idea. I don't know what it is right now, but you can find it on the website. So it's about a 5-to-1 ratio usually. So to control $50,000 worth of silver, you got to put up 10,000. And that might be the set by the CME. And a broker might say, well, we're only going to let you open an account if you put up $12,000 per 50,000. So they could set their own, but there's a minimum. And a lot of brokers go with the CME minimum. If the CME says you got to have a 1-to-5 ratio, that's what they'll set at the brokerage house. And then this will come out. And the thing about these margin requirements is really funny, and it's not funny, ha-ha, because I've been there and I've been caught by it, is even when you're winning, they up the margins for you. It happened to me in the palladium market years and years and years ago. And I'm going, wait a minute, I want to add to my position. I just added another 40,000 to my account. Why can't I buy another contract? Because no, you don't get it. When they raise margin requirements, even if you're long and you're winning, you still have to put up more cash or sell out. So they got everything in their favor. Everything favors the shorts in this market.
So how can that then turn around? I mean, you said that you tweeted
what I said about the goldsmiths. What could turn around is I don't care how much you charge me. You can't charge me more than the cash price. Of course, the dealers are making a fortune on the spread.
Yeah.
But that aside, if you go for the real silver market, which is the commercial bar market, if it says it's $29.82, you can buy it for $29.82 and a few pennies more to clear the paperwork and get the delivery charges and have it transported to your office, your vault, your bomb shelter, whatever. So it can be done.
Do you think
the easiest way is to use the SLV, which is what Wall Street Bets people are doing? The problem with the SLV is, are they really getting it? And I don't want to go into that too deeply because I don't want to misquote and I don't want any legal issues. But let me put it this way. Do you really think that 50 million ounces of silver over the last trading days really moved somewhere?
No. Not physical.
No, it's impossible.
No, it's impossible. And the silver market it's two markets, isn't it? You've got industrial and you've got investment.
Exactly.
Now, in the past, the majority was industrial and there was a smaller portion to investment. Is that correct?
No, I mean, I wrote, and this is one that you might want to look up, not you, Carrie, but the viewing audience. I did a lecture, and I don't think I wrote about it, but I said, what if, it was a PowerPoint lecture, what if silver was treated like gold? And in that lecture, I talked about silver's place in history is money, 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 and that's all it was for thousands of years. It's only been roughly in the last 100 years where it's been money and a commodity. And as we've gone on in time over the last, let's say 20 years, silver's become almost all commodity and very little money because of, one, its use in the high-tech world, and secondly, the brainwashing that took place from like 1873 on, where only gold is money. The problem with gold only as money is, one, it gives the bankers almost total control, and two, you can't get any backstop on gold or any real true measure. Because if you measure only in fiat, then the price of gold is infinity because fiat goes to zero. But if you have to measure gold in terms of silver, it's an actual ratio that proves, it kind of like helps the silver people, you might say, or helps at least quantify gold in something real. So you're looking at gold in terms of something else that's real rather than gold in something that's a total, complete, absolute fiction. So if you want to see what gold's price is, you look at how much silver it takes to buy gold. But the presupposition there is that silver is thought of as money, just like gold is thought of as money. And it's not. But going back to my lecture, what if silver was treated the same as gold? Well, then the banks would have to own silver as a monetary asset. If they owned the ratio of 70 to 1, it couldn't be done.
No,
it couldn't be done at that ratio because there isn't enough silver for the banks to use as a monetary reserve. That's how pitifully small the silver market is.
Well, there is. You've just got to change the price.
Well, change the price, exactly. And that's what gives the people the opportunity to put the money power back in their own hands.
For those that are listening that have suddenly woken up a little bit and said, what's all this talk about silver? What's all this talk about silver as real money, sound money? What do I need to learn about it? What would you say to those people out there that are saying, scratching their head and going, well, okay, silver's in the news. Why should I have it in my portfolio? How should I have it in my portfolio? And what percentage should I have in my portfolio?
Yeah, all great questions, and I'll just give you a curveball answer. I'm not meaning to be mean or disingenuous at all. You know, I'm free market. Like, there's a lot of people out there that probably don't want silver, don't need it, don't understand it. And if that's the case, then so be it. I'm not going to have a problem with that. For those that want to investigate further or interested, silver is the money of last resort. That's what I said in the 10 rules of silver investing. I don't have it in front of me, Carrie, but I could pretty much quote my own work, even though it's been decades. And rule number 1 is no one wants to be a prophet of doom, but in the unlikely event of an all-out financial crisis, silver will be the money of last resort, not gold. Because silver's value per unit is less than gold. Gold will be used for big purchases, but silver will be used in day-to-day transactions.
Right.
Because of that, everyone should own a little silver. So that's it. That's kind of rule number 1. Does it cover all cases? No. Well, it covers a very specific case in the unlikely event of a financial crisis. The problem is we're in the middle of one right now. Now, if you don't believe that, that's your issue, not mine. I know where we're at.
When you say we're in the middle of a financial crisis, haven't we been in a financial crisis since the last financial crisis? And aren't we?
We have, well said. And, you know, and I could pick a number earlier than then and build an argument, but I think the most solid, easy to understand is what the mainstream financial press called a crisis. 2008 was called a financial crisis. And to reiterate what you just said and add emphasis, from that point forward, we've still been in it. They papered it over, they made excuses, they put out propaganda, but the truth is we got into financial crisis in 2008, and we've never gotten out of it, and it continues to get worse. That's the truth.
Well, but I think, David, one of the things they're going to do to get out of it is they're just going to turn around and say, well, we've had this, I don't even want to say the word in case.
Health crisis. We've had this health crisis.
We've had a health crisis, so we can't use cash anymore. We're going to go digital. We'll just do a reset.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's exactly what they're striving for. I've been writing about it in the Morgan Report for months now. I forget if I comped you my private work or not. I should comp you if you don't get it. I thought I had, but maybe not, or maybe it expired. But regardless, and it's not about me. It's about the idea. But no, I've been on that idea it's their idea. I've just been reporting about it for months, but you're right.
So there potentially can be no financial crisis because we'll just reset everything and you'll all go digital, and we'll potentially give you a universal basic income. So you don't actually need to worry about silver or gold, or in fact, your current
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Kind of. And I think that's what we're headed towards.
That's exactly where they're heading us.
So my question to you is then, why do we care about silver or gold?
Well, if you care about freedom, you care about sovereignty, you care about making your own decisions, you care about having control over your own life, then you care about it, because it's almost a metaphor or an analogy for freedom, free thought, free speech, living as a free-born human being. Or if you just want to go along and be a sheep and be fed by them and groomed by them and slaughtered by them when they see fit, and go ahead. And a lot of people are followers, not leaders. Believe me, there aren't that many leaders in the world, and not that there should be or could be. I don't know. What I do know is how I feel about it. And I know that I don't want someone controlling my life for me. I mean, think about it. If you don't have control over your own human body, what do you have control over? If you're going to have to surrender to the authorities to get jabbed because they say so, and it's your body. And it's ironic in a way, because, you know, the women's lib thing, part of it is, and believe me, I love women, but it's just the way I see it. I call it as I see it. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm going to speak it the way I see it, is, you know, we have a right to our own body. Yeah. You know, that's why we can do the abortion thing. And now you don't have a right to your own body, and it's the same crowd, and that's okay. How hypocritical can you get?
Very, very interesting way of looking at it. And I said to someone once before, I said, once you lose your freedom, it's very hard to get it back again.
Exactly true. So that's it. I mean, and some people will see it this way. I mean, you're asking me, you know, everything I've said is my opinion. I mean, I've given you facts. There's been a fact, like the fact that the CME raised the margin requirements. It was by 17.9%. I said 18. You know, some trolls say David lied. He's off by 0.1%. Who knows? I mean, I put up with a lot of nausea over the years, and it's okay. I got pretty thick skin these days. But, you know, when it's a fact, I'll tell you. When it's my opinion, take it or leave it. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling you, I'm a very passionate man. I'm very deeply involved with what happens under these totalitarian regimes, where they take control of the monetary system and make everybody subservient to the few oligarchs reigning over everybody else. It's not right. That's what the whole idea of the Declaration of Independence was. And it was really the first time.
That's probably why these guys from Wall Street Bets have turned around and picked on silver. They've gone, you know what? That's a way that we can be a little bit more monetarily free.
Free as can be. I mean, if the people have the money, silver is more important than gold. The reason it's more important isn't because it's more valuable monetarily, although it might be, depending on if the free market made a determination. It's essential to the modern world. So let's just do a thought experiment and say the Wall Street Bets guys get all the remaining physical silver that exists.
Wow.
Now that's a total fantasy. It'll never happen, but it's a thought experiment.
Yep.
So now what happens is if they own all the silver, Apple Computer is at their beck and call, and Google and Facebook and the computer industry and the solar industry and the electric vehicle market and everybody else. Now, look, this is just a fantasy thought experiment. What I'm trying to convey is who would have the power then? They would. The silver owners would have the power, much more than the gold people. Gold is good for money, and I've said it. It is. It's basically what it's all about. But if you had silver, it's not only money, it's power, because without it, you couldn't have modern technology, period.
I'm going to give you the last word. You said in the past, there's nothing more powerful than the truth. Do you think the truth is finally coming out?
I do. I really do. And thanks for ending with that, because you know, one of the great oracle of Delphi is to thine own self be true. Very few people are willing to go into a self-discovery and look at their dark side, or even look very deep into their own personage And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, I mean, I'm a free market thinker, some people choose to do so, some don't. I think it's best to live a life fully rather than superficially. It's not a dress rehearsal. I give it all I've got. And I still could do more, I'm sure. But I think the truth is the most important thing, and it stands alone, and it doesn't have an agenda. It just is what it is. And the old adage that the truth will out, in other words, at some point the truth comes out, I think it's coming out. I think this Wall Street Bets is kind of a metaphor for the truth coming out. It's not just silver. I mean, it could be something else. It's just silver happens to be in this position at this time in history where it's the most important asset for modern society. I mean, it might have been rhodium or platinum or palladium or something else. It just turns out it's silver. And that's the way it is. The other thing that just turns out to be is silver is really the oldest money known to man, as far as men and women voting for what money is, not somebody telling them that seashells or tally sticks or all this other stuff is money, which has been used as money. I know that. What I'm saying is when you look at the long-term vote by the people, it's silver primarily, gold secondarily in the overall scheme of things. And some people even think of it as God's money or natural law money. But there's other ways to do trade. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have silver to do anything. I mean, you can do it with a credit card or, whatever. I mean, I know the facts about how the system operates. And the last thing the powers that be want is anybody, anywhere, at any time to have anything to do with the silver market.
It's not important for them. It's going to be a very, it's going to be a very interesting few months. It'd be great to have you back on maybe later this year to talk about the chaos that continues to continue on, but I wonder how it will play out.
Yeah, well, the continuation of the degradation of the financial system and the currency structure is almost guaranteed. I mean, the silver thing, I'll be honest, it could be a 1 week fling. I don't know. I doubt it. It looks like it's got some real juice behind it, and the awareness is going exponential along with what the price probably could do. But time will tell. I'm excited, but not overly so. I know the other side. I know how devious they are. I know what they have done in the past. So I am optimistic, quite optimistic, but I'm also a realist. I know they'll throw everything, the kitchen sink and something we never heard of before, at the market to keep control. But
okay, you don't have to answer this question, but do you have a price prediction?
What, short or long? Okay, I'll say what I've already said before this started. I said this year I expected to see $40 silver. I also said to my private members, it's possible that we could see $50 silver this year if things got extreme. Looks like they are going to get extreme. So I'm going to say we're going to see 40. I think that's pretty easy. We could see 50. And who knows if there's really, if we get somebody spooked on the short side that has to buy back their paper positions to clear, if exchange was fair, I mean, they would make these guys buy back their positions, just like they made people sell out their GameStop positions or wouldn't let them buy it anymore. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let me say one more thing, and I know you will, but the whole idea of the rule of law isn't a democracy with the mob rules. It's about the same rules, laws, and repercussions for everybody. Everyone has the same rules, laws, and accountability, whether you're the president of the United States or you're the janitor in a local high school, doesn't matter. Every citizen has the same protection under the law. So if you break the law and you do X and you're a janitor, the same punishment applies to you if you're a senator. Of course, we are so far from that concept. It's ridiculous.
Correct.
We've gone the same way as the Roman Empire. At the end of the Roman Empire, the senators weren't serving the people. It wasn't a republic at all. They were going for as much loot and booty as they could get and screw the public.
Yeah, and then it all came down. We've run out of time, David. Just before we go, how can people follow you on Twitter? And I know it's, I think it's themorganreport.com. You've got a subscription service there. If they want to get your deep reports, that would be where they go. How else can they follow you?
Yeah, just go to themorganreport.com. As you said, go to the blog. At the top of the blog, there's a nav bar. It has a icon for Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, which I'm still on, which may not be. I've moved everything to the library. I'll make a video about that shortly. So that's the nav bar to get to all the other social media.
David Morgan, thanks for being our final speaker at the virtual gold conference today. And I really appreciate your time.
Carrie, it's always a great time to be with you, even virtually. But it's a lot more fun in person.
Yeah. That's just about the Melbourne Cup again, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you in the networking room shortly.
The dinner, it was just one of the best conferences. I'll never forget it. I don't do black tie very often. I actually cleaned up pretty well, don't you think?
You did indeed.